everyone, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars.
The show that takes you through every Best Picture nominee from 1927 to today.
I'm Kyle.
And I am Ryan.
And we're here with the final film of the 6th Academy year.
I was just about to ask you right before we started if this was the final one, and it is.
This is it.
And it's a big one. You know, it's funny, when we cover 10 movies like this, I feel like it's easy to look at these as months, and you're like, well, this is kind of like rounding out, like, you know, the October, November. And December is the final month of the year, and whenever I think of a Christmas kind of movie, I think the best possible version of this would have been the movie we landed on, which is Little Women.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And like you said, this is a big one because this story appears multiple times throughout the Academy's history.
Yeah, it's not even the first time that this was adapted into a film.
No, it wasn't. Which was so funny. I was telling my buddy, Damien, like, oh, I just recently watched Little Women from 33. And he goes, oh, is that the original one? And I said, not even close. Not even close.
It's been made many times afterwards, but it was actually the third time it's been adapted for the screen.
Yeah.
So let's go through it. The first time it was, well, this is not going to be very interesting because they're literally a year after each other. But 1917 was the first, and then 1918.
Yeah. Both silent films, of course.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
We talk a lot about, in the year like 2026, we talk a lot about like movies are bankrupt and studios are just remaking things and getting sequels, and everything's a sequel and IP property now. IP property is a double. It's, you know, the P is property.
Right.
Anyways, everything's IP now. If we were alive in 1917 and 1918, do you think we would be potting about like, we just had Little Women last year. Like, why do we need another Little Women?
We have our newspaper story, and we're just like, what's going on at the theater?
I want to see the exciting electric things, not Little Women twice.
Need news stories. We've seen Little Williams.
Little
Women 3 times now.
I'm just saying, whenever someone's like, we just had a Peter Pan like 10 years ago, like, homie, in 1917, we just had Little Women before 1918.
Dude, I think about that all the time. And obviously there's like the difference of this was the silent era, and now we can do it with words.
Oh, totally.
But even in like the 50s and the 60s, like we've talked many times when we cover a movie here that's nominated in the early 30s. Yeah, and then it was remade in 1954. And it's like, we've been doing this forever.
Yeah. This is just what we do. But 1 year difference, I was like, well, that's egregious.
Yeah, I don't know what that was all
It's
about.
hard to look past that one. But this is the third time it's been adapted for the screen, the first time with sound. So, very excited to be covering this one. And of course, not the last time it's been adapted. You mentioned the 1950s. Obviously, most recently, Greta Gerwig has remade this film. Was that 2019?
2019.
Yeah.
Yep.
And obviously, something we'll be talking about in a couple of years.
Yeah.
When that's nominated.
This was based on a book, of course.
Of course.
It was like a 2-part book, 1868 to 1869, by Louisa May Alcott. Have you ever read this book?
You know, I never have.
Oh, wow.
I never got to it. But I feel like, especially like, you know, when we're born after all these adaptations, it's almost one of those where it's like, and I know the answer to this is yes, but like at the time I was like, do I need to? Like, I have all these movies I can watch instead.
Yeah.
So, no, I never got around to reading it.
Gotcha. When the 2019 version came out, I was death racing at the time.
Sure.
But I was also covering the source material from the adapted movies.
My God.
So I did read, I think I listened to the audiobook of Little Women.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's so funny. That was also the year I either was watching Friends straight through for the first time or doing a rewatch, but I got to the episode where Joey and Rachel switch the Shining and Little Women.
Yeah.
And Joey gets to the part where a character dies, and he's like, so-and-so died. And I was like, what?
You're like, no!
The spoiler for... No, that's not the same movie, or the same episode. Never mind. I got spoiled by Friends like 30 years later.
It's really funny that it's Joey, of all people, spoiling a movie for you, too.
Leave it to Joey.
Because a part of you is almost like, well, he got it wrong. He's the fool in this show. So maybe he got it wrong. And you watch it, you're like, damn, Joey was right.
Joey was right.
All along. We'll hop right into the nominations here for Little Women. So, 3 nominations in total. We start with Best Adapted Screenplay. You mentioned this was based on the 1868 novel by Louisa May Alcott. But it was adapted for the screen by Sarah Y. Mason and Victor Herman.
Sorry.
This wasn't even written weird. It's just I saw Heerman, was like, that's Herman. I had Pee-wee on the brain. Victor Heerman was the other writer alongside Sarah Y. Mason. Best director for George Cukor. We talked about him recently.
Yeah, we did, and I don't remember why.
Wasn't he the partial director for...
The Lubitsch movie,
Yes.
1 Hour with You?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the one.
Interesting follow-up. Wasn't like directly right after, but interesting follow-up after 1 Hour with You. And then outstanding production on behalf of RKO Pictures.
RKO, baby. It's always funny to be like, his follow-up to this, that. And that used to be a problem with the original iteration of the show because we would hop decades.
Sure.
And it was like, crazy that after 10 years later, this is what he did. And that's why we're doing like the movie by movie.
Right.
But even now it's like, hey, do you think we should cover like every Capra film in between the 3 that were nominated?
For anyone who hasn't listened to our previous episode of Lady for a Day, you should know that I very much enjoy Frank Capra films. And I'm going to go ahead and answer Kyle's question. No, we should not be watching every Frank Capra film.
No.
There's way too many that happen in between. And of course, at a time when directors are just making like just non-stop films.
Or there's a war going on.
True.
And you're making propaganda movies.
True.
We'll talk more on that.
We'll get there. You want to walk us through the cast?
Totally. Probably the biggest introduction to a actress here is going to be Katherine Hepburn as Jo March.
Yeah.
You have Joan Bennett as Amy March, Frances Dee as Meg March, Jean Parker as Beth March, and then I have Douglas Montgomery as Laurie, who is not one of the sisters. Don't let the name fool you.
Yeah, that did surprise me. Did you also catch Laurie's last name?
No.
Lawrence.
Laurie Lawrence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cute.
That's Timothée Chalamet's character.
It is.
Yeah.
It sure is. When they said Laurie, I was like, that's Timmy.
Which is so weird, because when he showed up on screen and he starts being like all whiny, I was like, wow, I'm really starting to not like Timothée Chalamet.
That's unfortunately the character. Only other person I had was Spring Byington as Marmee March, their mom.
Yeah.
Interesting question. They would say Marmee. Do you know if back then, 1868, if that was like a common terminology for mother?
I don't think so. I think that is her name, but
And
I
they
also
just call her by her first name? Because they definitely called like their dad.
I really don't know. I will say a lot of the Letterboxd reviews for this are people saying me cringing every time they pronounced her name wrong. So I don't know how we're supposed to pronounce it.
Maybe her name's Mommy. And that's just
Maybe.
how she says it. But
yeah,
it's worth noting,
papers-
on IMDb, it is spelled Marmee. So
yeah.
Just pointing that out. So look, I'm not going to even remotely say that the podcast of two men is the one that should break down the synopsis and plot and meaning of something like Little Women. But ultimately, it follows the March sisters in... it never really clarifies specifically the time, but to me, it was always like 1860s, right?
Yeah.
Of the time that it was written. Set in Concord, Massachusetts, and then sometimes in New York. It follows the March sisters and their evolution over time and their relationships as they get older. I think the biggest inspiration that comes from something like Little Women is going to be the Jo March character, right? And obviously notably played by Katherine Hepburn here. I guess we'll take a beat real quick. First Katherine Hepburn movie that we'll cover.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like, she's a big name that we will be talking about many, many times over. And I think this movie is a fantastic introduction to her.
It is.
Because it really is. Even the book follows the point of view of Jo March, who's really a fun female character, I think. She's not your typical, she's almost tomboyish to a degree, and she's a very independent woman, and she takes on kind of like a motherly figure to all of her sisters as well, even though they obviously have their mother as well. But she's just a really fun character to follow.
She is, and it's the way that she's written, right? Like, this was in the core text, or in this sacred text. This was in the core text. Like, the way that Jo is kind of in defiance of, like, women at the time, you know? Mm-hmm. Everyone was, you have to find a partner. You have to be, like, into your studies. You have to do this. And she was instead interested in the things that interested her. Arts, writing, putting on performances. You know, the way that she would jump fences, I thought was really funny in this movie. When she's great scene when she and her sisters are bothering the neighbor. I think it actually is Laurie at that time.
Yeah,
and they're like, she's shouting like, "Hey, hey!" They're like, don't do that. You're gonna get his attention. He's like, "Cool, that's what I want. Hey, hey!" And then as they walk away, Laurie comes out and he's like shouting, "Hey, hey," back. And she just hauls it. Clearly of like I didn't mean to do this. And then immediately jumps over her mom's fence.
Yeah, but jumps over it like Jason Bourne. Like,
it's like
so cool.
She like holds on to one side and throws both legs over in a dress and clears it.
Yeah.
Okay. The best part of that to me is the camera pans out just a little bit. You could see the opening of the fence to the left.
Right.
I was like,
she had to take a shortcut. Man, I want to do an edit of her jumping fences with the theme song of Little House on the Prairie playing. And it's just do 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 do. And she's just action born, Joe Bourne.
The only thing you should add to that is we should have a similar voice like that guy in Jason Bourne, being like, "My God, that's Katherine Hepburn."
It's so good. That's Joe March. Yeah, and her introduction in the movie, she's talking with their aunt. And there's a great moment where she's going out to go play. Yeah. And this is such a perfect introduction to like her rebellious nature and just her free-spiritedness, because her aunt is like, you can't go anywhere until you clean this stair banister. And she's like,
she really is almost like the grandmother.
Yeah.
With the way that she's like a little more tough on them than the mother.
Yeah, she's harsh. She's kind of mean, but she means well, and she takes care of them. But she's like, you got to clean this banister. And she's like, yeah, got you. And she gives it like one wipe and then slides down it. And you're like, oh, okay. She's cool as heck.
I think it even goes a little before that. Like when she's reading and her aunt is falling asleep, she starts reading a little more loudly as she's exiting the room to sneak out. Yeah. And then ultimately goes up the stairs. The way she goes up the stairs, I want to talk about real quick. She like hikes up her skirt, which of course, you know, on a staircase you have to. But she hikes up her dress and then she runs up it. And this was probably one of the funniest things I've seen this year that we've covered, where like the way she hikes up it was like similar to how Frederick March played Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde.
Yeah,
rather.
yeah.
But the way he played him, it was like she kind of like hunches a little bit and like runs up the stairs holding that. I was like, this is a horror movie, the way she's running up these stairs right now.
Frederick March had some crazy parkour in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as well.
Did. So it followed suit. But you're right. I mean, I think sliding down the banister was one of the funnier details of like, I'll clean the banister all right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then she just flies off and goes right out the front door.
Yep.
Worth noting, this is her fourth on-screen appearance at the time, Katherine Hepburn. First movie was A Bill of Divorcement in 1932. And then, of course, Little Women is 1933, but followed Christopher Strong in Morning Glory. So, you know, it's fun to be covering Katherine Hepburn so early on in a movie like this. But again, this is so early into her career.
Yeah, absolutely. And let it be noted, you mentioned Morning Glory. She was nominated this year for Best Actress, but it was for that movie, Morning Glory.
So interesting. Yeah. Because, I mean, clearly if there was a acting performance that you can't take your eyes off of in Little Women, it was Katherine Hepburn's.
Which makes me wonder what Morning Glory looks like.
Yeah.
Katherine Hepburn, obviously incredible as Jo March, but I want to talk about all the sisters as well. The next one we're introduced to is Joan Bennett as Amy. Yeah, Amy's the one that's in school, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. She's the one. Sometimes. Man, I'm so glad you brought her up.
Yeah.
There is a frame in the beginning of this movie. We meet Jo and their aunt, and then we shortly after go to a classroom with a professor who we'll come back to, and then Amy. And the entire class is working with the professor, and then the camera cuts over to the right, and you see Amy March standing with a sign. And I'm trying to remember exactly what the sign said, but I remember laughing extremely hard at it.
Oh, it's very Bart Simpson-y.
Yes.
Of like, I will not draw my teacher in caricature form or something like that.
Yeah, it was. I'll look it up what it was, because it made me laugh really hard to a point where I thought that should be a still image for us that we use on the pod very often, because it was like, I have failed or something like that.
Right. That'd be a good meme we can throw in the Discord.
I would love it.
But she has a great introduction as well. Obviously not as action-packed, I guess, as Jo March. But she is being punished at school for drawing funny caricature versions of her teacher. And she gets scolded by her teacher. And then she also has a fantastic moment after she gets out of class where all of her friends are like, what happened? What did the teacher do to you? And she sticks up for herself. And I think it's a really cool, slow introduction to all of these little women and just how independent and strong they all are individually. There's one who's a little more timid that we'll get to in a second. But Joan Bennett here is also fantastic, just in a completely different role than Katherine Hepburn. Do you want to move on to Meg? Is that the next one? Meg is the youngest, I believe.
Meg is the youngest. Yeah. So with Meg, this is portrayed by Frances D. Meg was always kind of outside of the lead image for me. It really was more Joe and Amy kind of leading, with Beth being a major figure behind them. And to me, Meg was always just kind of like, and I'm here too.
Yeah.
I never really got too much characteristic from Meg.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I can't remember a whole lot that happens with Meg, which sounds awful because she definitely has a story, but it is the most minor of the four sisters.
It is, and unfortunately, I think while you see the other sisters go through very monumental changes, the biggest one is going to be that Meg, I think, serves as the passing of time for the sisters, mostly Joe, of like, can you believe like my baby sister is like getting married, like
right.
You know, things like this that make it show the passing of time, and less more the evolution of that character, if that makes sense. And I don't mean to say it's bad writing, but certainly the movies tend to do that, and this was one of them.
Yeah,
the three main sisters to me were always Joe, Amy, and Beth. Now Beth is interesting because Beth was portrayed by Jean Parker, and also just echoing what you said, I love Joan Bennett in this movie.
Yeah, she's great.
It's a lot of what we're going to talk about is going to be the performances, but also just it's worth noting that this being the first time that this movie has been adapted for sound, you get a real idea of how iconic these characters are. Right? Women are not written like Jo March very often, especially in the 1930s.
Right.
So to have an adaptation like this that shows such a free spirit like that has led the way for what happens now.
Yeah.
So very cool to see that happen. Amy is a very similar, like, you know, she's not quite as, I guess, loud as her sister when it comes to her independence, but she definitely believes in it the same way and sees marriage in a similar light.
Yeah.
So it's very iconic to see those characters portrayed that way. Beth has a little bit more of a, not cautionary, but a little bit different of a story because of the fate of this character.
Right.
Anyone who's read the novel or seen any of these adaptations
Or watched Friends.
and is familiar with Joey knows where this goes.
Yeah.
You had alluded to it earlier, so spoilers, I suppose, but not really. Beth March does die in this. And this is a very large... This is why, to me, Joe and Amy really are the leads of this.
Totally.
And then what ends up happening to Beth and Meg, or more, really the passing of time for Meg, is more... How does this affect Joe and Amy? Then how does this affect those characters?
You know what movie I thought about a lot while I was watching this was Cavalcade, because it follows this family through not just like the events in their life, but also things outside of their power.
Sure.
Such as the Civil War taking place during this time, and really how that affects their father, which in turn affects them.
Right.
But this is really like what Cavalcade was trying to do, but you really get to spend time with these characters and learn about these characters. So I agree with you, like Joe and Amy are the leads here, and while Beth isn't just a plot point, she has her own story, and it is a very sweet narrative to follow, but ultimately we are following Joe specifically, and I think her death and the way it affects her is kind of the main pivotal point of Beth's character.
Right. I mean, so what ends up happening, there's a lot that happens with Beth even before this, but Beth does contract scarlet fever. She has been holding a baby, and the baby has passed from scarlet fever, so now there's the fear that she has it.
Which is so dark.
It is dark. And it kind of comes out of nowhere in this movie, to be honest, because this is like a very light, like fun adaptation. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in this is when the sisters are putting on a play.
It's
Joe
so good.
has written, she wants to write these plays and these stories, these books even, and she puts on, the March sisters put on this performance, and to me this kind of captured like the manic but also like free-spirited nature of Joe in general, but women also, of like them putting on this performance, but that even went outside of it to the audience. There's a moment where playing multiple roles, Joe gets caught up in a tower, and the tower set falls on her.
Yeah.
And then everyone in the audience is getting up to try and help her, but then she's like, it's fine, just be seated, it's not a big deal. And then people who are sitting down fall off the couch and now everyone's just yelling and talking and trying to help them up. And in a horror movie, this would be like, my anxiety is peaking. But in this kind of movie, it's like, well, this is joyous, like how loud and like crazy this is, and everyone's falling over. They're having fun, exactly. Yeah. And I really liked this because this kind of shows like, how everyone got along and like how they were happy in life. And that's really the extent that we see Meg for me. But like that's Beth too. Like she just wants to be involved with her sisters,
right? And
she just wants to be a part of it with them. But it's not until she gets scarlet fever that we start seeing like a real turn in this movie. The dark nature you talked about. And the thing that was interesting to me, I had to do a little reading on this. It wasn't clear to me in the movie, is that Jo cares for Beth while she's sick with scarlet fever, but she doesn't contract it because she has had it previously in life. So she's like immune to it in that sense.
I didn't know that was a one and done kind of thing.
I don't know if that's how that worked, but they're just more like, this is how this was able to happen, which to me was kind of like, this Superman is immune to kryptonite. You're like, okay.
This Superman has had kryptonite before.
Yeah, not this one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so with Beth, obviously this is a tragic story for her. And then this also is a kind of a waking up moment, but also in like a distraction way for Jo, where like now this has happened and she's like, what do I do with my life?
Yeah.
Right? It's the severity of life is what this teaches Jo. So I do want to talk to you about the professor.
Yeah, the one where Beth gets the piano from. Oh, no. Jo's love interest.
My understanding is that the professor, Amy's professor at the beginning of this movie, is the same professor that Jo goes off to New York and stays with.
And gets a job.
And like there's romantic interest between them.
Oh, I don't recall if that's the same one or not.
They have the same mutton chops. They have the same, which, back then, who knows?
Everybody's got the same haircut now.
But they're only referred to as professor the entire movie. I thought it was the same guy. Age-wise, I have some questions about this.
I don't know.
I want to break this down a little bit. Katherine Hepburn in this movie, I need to look up how old she actually was.
Okay.
But she does not necessarily look like 15. And then later on in life, she meets the professor, and then they kind of start up like a friendship, but clearly on his side, he has a little bit more of an interest.
Right.
And this just kind of caught me off guard because the age gap seemed a little strange to me. And it's worth noting that she doesn't seem to have a lot of that interest in this. It's more just, this guy supports my writing, so like I should, continue this friendship. And he's like, I'd like to write a letter to your father. You're like, uh-oh, why would you want to do that, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this really bothered me. I think with the time period it takes place in, like, there is this is how things were done. Mm-hmm. But also I think at this point, once the like romance starts to occur, Jo is much older. I think she's like out of college age, or in college age at least.
Oh, sure. She's not 15. It's just more so the gap between them. It's not so much how young was she. It was just more like what was the gap of age between them.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, like, a lot has happened in that time. I think, what I think I needed in this movie was I just needed a little reminder of like, this is 1870. This is 1872, like to show the passing of time. Because age-wise in this...
The scarlet fever didn't help?
Well, it did a little bit, but at the same time, I was like, where are we right now?
Yeah.
But I want to go back to what you said about Cavalcade. Cavalcade, I think you're right. This did what Cavalcade wanted to do, but in such a smart way. Because Cavalcade is just more... These things really happened. Look at these large events that actually happened. Titanic being the most notable of them, in the movie at least. This was less interested in historically what was happening around the time. You mentioned Scarlet Fever, sure. But it wasn't, well, here's how war affected things and here's how this affected this. It really was more the things that happen in their lives as time passes. Yeah,
it was definitely more contained.
Yes.
Less Forrest Gumpy. And more just like almost a coming of age story,
right?
Just at a much larger scale in a way. One, because you're following four sisters, but also the age range is also towards the older side,
right?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I just really love, and this is probably due to the quality of the source material, but like every scene, even if it is kind of just a playful look at a day in the lives of these sisters, I feel like every scene is important, if nothing else, to the development and our care for this family and these sisters. Like the camaraderie between them, the chemistry between all of the actors is incredible.
Definitely.
From the moment you see all four of them on screen together, you're just like, this is a real family, and they all love each other.
They do. And notably, you know, with Joe and Amy, Katherine Hepburn and Joan Bennett are just so good together.
They are.
And you really do feel the older sister who sometimes thinks she knows better, but then like the sister who knows her better than that. Like, I really like Joan and Katherine on screen together. But you're right. I mean, Jean and Frances also did a really great job of like feeling like there was not a lead among them. They were just all sisters. But the camera focused obviously a bit more on Joe and Amy than Beth and Meg. But I wonder how much of that too was just because we know what happens. Again, me because of the movies, you because of Friends. I wonder how much of that was us and our expectations. Because we know what ends up happening to Beth.
Yeah, and I will say, because I've seen the Greta Gerwig version of this and I've read the book, I feel like it was kind of working against me for this movie in general.
Sure.
Because I was like, okay, I'm watching Little Women. I know this. And I didn't allow myself the opportunity to like really like read between the lines and try and find the themes and the meanings and the purpose of all the individual scenes. And I more just kind of consume this as entertainment. And I'm kind of bummed about that since, you know, we're recording the episode. But,
yeah.
But like, here we are. That's why I'm not diving into specific scenes and really like, yeah, and then the meaning of this and the way it transformed Joe. But I like this. It's cute.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like, this is a great story. Like, any way I've ever consumed it, it's a great story.
It is. And I did like this a good bit. It wasn't my favorite adaptation that I've seen of it, but obviously, you know, over time, a lot has changed. But it was, I don't want to say surprisingly, but I was very happy at how digestible it was.
Yeah.
Right. I think that some of the movies that we've seen in this time period, not so much this year specifically, but in general, this could have been a very tragic story with like very little levity. And they didn't do that. They have like, you know, their mom talking about in the beginning, like, oh, well, I just hope they're taking care of themselves. I hope they're doing this. You were introduced to Joe's kind of like manic nature, Amy and her like passion for, you know, life. And then we see them just like having this happy life together, building these sets, playing these characters, like putting on performances. It is a really happy movie. And I really enjoyed my time with it for the most part. I think for me, these movies, I just keep thinking back to what Kim said about like, I wish these movies were 50 and 60 minutes long.
Yeah.
Because she's right. I mean, like a lot of these, that you find yourself at like the 50 or 60 minute mark in the movie, and you're like, yeah, this is getting a little long.
Yeah.
And it's an hour and a half long. I think Little Women is an hour and 45 maybe, but still not very long.
I believe this is the longest of the nominees we've covered.
This ever?
No. This year.
I was going to say, that can't be true. I've watched Cavalcade, and that's 4 hours long.
Sure.
So
yeah, but it is one of those things where like this is a hefty book. You know,
Sure.
There is a lot to include. But I think the other thing with this movie, and maybe what kind of helped it be just entertainment for me, it is kind of just vignettes of here's this scene, here's this scene, here's this scene, and while there is an overarching story, of course, it does feel just like little sprinkles of let's have fun with these characters.
Yep.
And while I like that, after you do get to like that 50-something minute mark, you're like, okay, I know how these sisters care for each other, and I know all of this. And there is lacking like that big pivotal shift, I think, at times. So I do wish it was a little bit shorter, but I don't know. I can't tell if it's me just being like, yeah, I've seen this. I understand Little Women.
Yeah, it's
I don't understand Little Women clearly.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's interesting because I think that what we're going to talk about for the next couple years, both in canon of what we're talking about here and also just how long we're talking about this, we're going to be talking about pacing issues. You know, like sometimes the attention span back then is different than it is now, so there's different things we do for pacing. Obviously, in a world post something like Mad Max Fury Road, pacing is a different thing where it's like, well, how much energy are you keeping up in the movie? Not that that's the first movie to do that, but that's an example of a movie that is just pulsating all the way through, right? So it's different, and we have to expect different things from these movies. So again, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It's just more my own engagement with it is not very high after like the 56-minute mark of this movie, because it reaches what I'm calling the okay factor, which isn't to say okay, it's okay, but it's more, the beginning, I'm excited. The play that they're putting on, I'm excited. Watching them like make these decisions and like the will they won't they of Lori and Joe, I'm excited. But then after like the second like will they won't they with Joe and Lori, that's when I hit my like, okay, like I see what we're doing.
Once Timmy shows up.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. Honestly, not even once Timmy shows up, because his introduction was the window of like the hey, and she's like, I gotta get out of here, which was great. And she Jason Bournes.
Yeah, she does.
But yeah, it's around the 60-minute mark where I was just like, okay, like this isn't bad. It's just I'm kind of out of it right now.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that the whole reason that Joe even goes to New York is that a lot of the tension of Joe's character is the expectation of women at this time.
Sure.
You're going to find a partner and you're going to get married and you have to be dutiful to that partner. And that's just not a life she wants to live. She wants to be more independent of that. And that's the whole crux of this character.
Yeah.
And this touches on the whole, like, women can have it all, like, we can have it all kind of thing. And with her, she's like, well, I don't want that. I want this specifically, and this is what I want in life. So she ends up, like, not pursuing that relationship, although she has a direct connection with Lori. Kind of want to slow down. We're talking a lot about, like, the sisters and everything. I just want to give Douglas a moment. How did you feel about Douglas Montgomery in this as Lori?
I think Laurie's an interesting character because you don't like him the whole movie.
Yeah.
I think you get to a point where like you're okay with him, and you do have to remind yourself like this is kind of like a teenage boy, so he is a little aloof and bratty. But I might be biased at this point. I think I like him more than Timothée Chalamet.
Well, sure.
In the role. I don't know enough about him to start
what you're
comparing
saying
Timmy.
is you'd want to see Marty Supreme starring Douglas Montgomery, is what you're saying.
Now that's something we could talk about. Yeah, no, I thought he played this character pretty well. I think that's exactly what I wrote in my notes. I was like, Douglas Montgomery, he's pretty good.
So you're saying that Dune Part 3, which is coming out later this year, you think Douglas would be a better fit than Timmy?
Yeah, he's the Lisan al-Gaib. 100%.
The Lisan Montgomery.
That's the one. Nailed it.
Wow, look at that. I'm actually proud of that. Yeah, I thought he was good too. I think, it's interesting because, again, we look back at this and we see Katherine Hepburn playing Joe March, and Douglas Montgomery is holding his own in his scenes with Katherine Hepburn. And at this point, again, her fourth on-screen appearance, like, it's hard to say this at the time, but certainly now, we're like, you're doing really great across from Katherine Hepburn. And he's like,
yeah.
Okay, sure.
Thanks.
But obviously who she becomes, and this is such a great start for her too. This isn't like a humble beginnings. Like, this is an iconic character that she gets to play.
Yeah.
And she does incredible in it.
And then she wasn't even nominated for it.
Which is...
It's the movie next door.
Yeah,
Like,
we'll have to talk about that.
I'm definitely going to watch it before the ceremony.
That's a smart idea.
Yeah.
Because this is... I mean, look, you can't talk about, like, the history of Oscars and, like, Best Actress wins without talking about someone like Katherine Hepburn.
Totally.
So, obviously, I think that's kind of the main appeal of this adaptation specifically, is Katherine Hepburn as Joe March.
I agree.
But to your point, I mean, everyone holds their own very well.
Yeah,
and this doesn't feel like one person's movie.
No, it doesn't. But I do think that the highlight, like if you go back and you watch this movie for its importance now, a lot of it does come up as Katherine Hepburn's portrayal of Joe March, as well as just like an early adaptation of this very classic novel. I did write in my notes, like as I approach the end of this movie, you have the moment where Beth dies, and I think that they handle her death pretty well. I think death in these classic movies a lot of times either feels very rushed and almost like the leads don't really care. There's a lot of, oh, well, yeah, that's sad. East Lynne feels that way to me. A Farewell to Arms is like progress in the right direction. And this, I think they do well, not only in the acting when it happens, but there's also kind of a fake out where you think that Beth has died and then she pulls through only to die later. I think that adds some weight, well deserved weight to her death.
It is interesting, I think, coming back to something like that after we know Beth does die.
Yeah, but I mean, that's our fault.
Well, true, but I more so mean like this is not the first or second adaptation of this book.
Yeah.
So even the people who are familiar with the story are like, I know she died.
I imagine that most people going to see this in the 30s
Hadn't read it?
probably had read it and not seen the earlier adaptations.
Oh, sure.
That's my guess.
I see what you're saying.
Regardless, sure, I'm sure a bunch of people knew that Beth died. But either way, like, it kind of adds a little, and this might happen in the book, it's been a long time, but that fake out might happen in the book as well. I just think that it adds something to this, and it doesn't turn this, like, this thing, even as a first-time viewer, of going, oh, wow, she's going to die. Oh, wait, there's hope. Nope, she's gone.
Mind.
Yeah. I liked that. It added something to her death.
Yeah, well, I think it always had to happen or not happen, but it always had to escalate whenever Joe was in New York.
Yeah.
To kind of show, like, passing of time, and also, like, should I have been here? Like, was I selfish in going and doing what I wanted to do and becoming a writer? But obviously the answer is, like, life just happens around you, and, like, your decisions don't affect that. Like, it is just something that happens in the pursuit of being great and achieving what you want to achieve.
Marty Supreme. Yeah, that being said, though, like, as much weight as it did add to her death, I also kind of wrote down, we as a 2026 audience have changed a little bit in the way that we process tragedy.
Sure.
And there needs to be a lot more on screen for me, especially. Not me especially, but you know what I mean, specifically.
You love death.
I need it. But, like, visually, I need there to be weight in the moment. And also, like, music is very important, I think, when characters die. And I will say that the music in this movie, I was very pleased when the title screen popped up and it was like, original composition, Max Steiner. And I was like, oh, this has a score.
Yep.
And this is going to happen more and more. And I'm sure it's happened on movies we've covered already. But this was the first time I was like, oh, I know this name. He wrote the music for King Kong, specifically, this same year. And I like this name. I like his work. How much of his work really appears in this movie?
And I'm so glad you brought this up, because you're right. What we're going to talk about, this may not be the first movie to ever do it. Mm-hmm. But I am pretty sure that this is the first movie we've covered that has done this. And this is going to be like okay, well, who cares, guys? But to me, it's huge.
Yeah.
This is the first time that we've covered a movie that I can remember where the music is playing throughout the scenes.
Yes.
There is music set to the scenes, and not just, oh, there's music playing while these two people talk and, like, it's in the background. No, this is like, this was intentionally played over this. There's multiple scenes happening where there is a score playing behind it. And this is the film's score, not just, oh, there's a song in the background and here's this song.
Right. Or we use, like, a pre-existing song to throw in somewhere.
Right, of course. Any movie that you watch that covers, like, Christmas stuff and you hear, like, Holy Night or something playing in the background, this is kind of the beginning of something like that.
Yeah.
And to me, that was huge and massive to see this happen, because that's something that we just expect in movies now.
Right.
But going back and doing the history like you and I have, it's not realistic to always expect music playing. And it's not really a thing they did prior to this.
Yeah. And it was a thing that, up to King Kong in 1933, you didn't have, like, synchronized music tracks.
Correct.
Because you couldn't do it. You were recording the dialogue from these characters. If you wanted a score, it was played on disc separately on a whole separate machine. Not every theater was built to handle that.
No.
So a lot of times you were just missing a musical score. If you were fortunate enough to go to a theater that had it, again, they weren't composing these full scores for an entire hour and 30, hour, 45-minute movie until King Kong. And I keep bringing up King Kong because that's Max Steiner, who, again, is here. So it's very cool to see, like, okay, this is the beginning of something that's going to become so big that I think it's next year. I'll have to double check. But, like, we're getting close to the original score category at the Academy Awards. I thought the music in this was great, too.
It was, yeah. And again, like, it's one thing to notice music playing. It's another to actually really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, no, I had a great time with the score, and I thought it was just really exciting to be hearing a score playing. And that's the other thing. I feel like I should almost watch this alongside something like one of my favorite scores in a film.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, then I can actually determine if I like the score. Because right now I feel like when I was watching the movie, I was like, there's a score.
This is
this is great. I love it.
Yeah.
And someone's like, how was the score? I was like, oh, I don't know. I just love it. Like, I just love that there's a score. So now I have to like go back and now that I'm not surprised to hear it, actually judge it.
Yeah.
But I remember liking it a lot. And obviously, you know, one of the reasons that I keep saying like Christopher Nolan's one of my favorite directors, even, you know, when like The Prestige came out, is because it always felt like when you go to his movies, you get like, you're going to get a great score. Even up to like Oppenheimer, this is true. You're going to get a fantastic score that goes alongside the movie, but you can also listen to it outside of the movie and still feel those connections. Incredible performances, incredible direction, really interesting ideas. Like, you're going to get all of that in great framing within the movie. So score is something that holds a lot of weight for me in like movies. So
Totally.
I'm excited that we're getting to a point where scores matter more and we're going to see those nominations pop up.
I think what's cool is movies are this like mixed media art form, and now we are adding this other layer, this other element with the score. Yeah, and I just saw Max Steiner's name and I was like, oh, I need to pay attention, and it hooked me.
It also is really funny to me that he covers at least, probably more than this, but at least 2 movies in this year. And in size, he's talking about Little Women and then Big Monkey.
Yeah.
King Kong and Little Women. That's very funny to me because not just in genre, but also just in subject matter, 2 very different movies.
I mean, what are we, Ryan, but just big apes?
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I love being called a big ape. You know, the problem is I have red hair and I know you have dark hair. So like we really are the Caesar and Maurice of like podcasting. So
I'm not going to lie, I could get behind that. I love Caesar.
I had a feeling that you would. You love shouting no.
No. Did you like that movie? No.
That's so funny. You know what's this is completely off base, but something I've been doing with my friends a lot recently is we've been doing the Daniel Day-Lewis and There Will Be Blood of Yes I Do.
Okay.
And we would just like, hey, do you feel like running over to Taco Bell? Yes, I do. Just saying yes, I do over and over. So that's been my Caesar now. A couple things I want to talk about with Little Women here.
Yeah. So
this was obviously received extremely well, right? This broke the attendance records at Radio City Music Hall.
Nice.
I don't know why I said it like that. So it earned $100,000 in its first week. We talk now, and whenever a movie opens to like 6 million, we're always like, oh, that's poor. But back then, $100,000 in its first week was massive.
Sure.
So Radio City Music Hall, said it better that time, saw a lot of success from that. A little behind the scenes when it comes to Little Women. So the director, George Cukor, thank you for that. He had left RKO before making this film. And when he did that, he was leaving for MGM specifically. We talked a lot about, or have talked a lot about, we'll continue to do so, studios and contracts.
Yeah.
Contracts to specific studios at this time. But Cukor did agree to return to RKO to finish this film specifically as a personal favor to David O. Selznick. Selznick at the time was stressed over RKO, right? He's trying to make this like a financially successful endeavor, and everything that's happening, whether it comes to the not code at the time, but the restrictions around that, trying to make this profitable, extremely stressed, and he was just like, leaving, but I really need you to do this for me. And Cukor came back and directed this film. And you know, whenever we hear about favors and stuff, I'm always like, okay, yeah, this movie was a favor to someone. It's crazy to look at something like Little Women starring Katherine Hepburn and be like, well, this was a favor. Like, because there is a sense of style and direction. You know, I even love, you talk about the scene in the beginning where Joe is sliding down the banister. I love the framing in this when she's doing the weird little Frederick March stomp up the stairs and everything with her dress hiked up. And that's a great shot of like, the camera doesn't follow her up, but it's just more like it kind of pans to the left and you see her going further up and away from the screen. And then it kind of cuts back and sees the aunt waking up and coming out. Yeah. But then her coming down the banister, the camera then changes to going on top of the stairs and then looking down, her going. So this is not a, just put the camera somewhere and we'll figure it out. No. It's good direction. And I really like the framing.
The blocking is beautiful.
Right.
Cukor also gets like incredible performances out of everybody, obviously. Evidence with Joan Bennett and Katherine Hepburn especially. But like the set pieces as well. Like the home in which these little women live in, they're all very intricately designed, and there's such a variety in locations as well, and no lack of labor exists in any of the sets.
Right.
So I think like this has everything to make a great film. And I think my enjoyment of it, or my rating, which we'll get to soon, is kind of set due to, I watched this as entertainment, as like a popcorn movie, instead of really taking it in the way I probably should have.
Right.
Q-Core, though, the movies he does in the future, like I'm so excited to see what he does, or cover them with you. Have you seen the Philadelphia Story?
I haven't.
Okay.
I've actually had the opportunity to, and I was like, I should wait for the pod.
Man.
Because I didn't want to cover it and be like, I saw this 3 months ago.
Dude, we're going to be talking about him for so long, and I really, really enjoy some of his other movies.
I'm really excited. You know, it's one of my favorite things about doing this pod so far has been seeing the introductions to some people that I know what's to come. More on that in our episodes next month that we talk about. But I've really loved seeing a style in them.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked about not drama or scandal, but Kukor leaving 1 hour with you, not getting the full, not getting credited as a director, but instead Lubitsch, who came in later to direct it, getting the full credit. I was interested to see style from him, and this being the first film that we've seen of him, correct, in the Academy?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to see this style of his filmmaking and his direction. So I'm excited to see that moving forward, whether it be Philadelphia Story or anything before then. But that's been one of my favorite things, is seeing consistency in directors. So I'm not sure why I did that.
Yeah, it looks good.
You know, good for an audio podcast to make visual gestures. But yeah, I'm really excited to see more of Kukor in that sense, because I really like the blocking and framing in this.
Yeah, it's really a well-made, well-crafted movie.
And you're right. You know, there's really nothing to say negative about this. I think it's just more personal preference on like adaptations. I think there's a pacing issue with this for me that I really couldn't get behind fully.
Sure.
But in terms of like performances, blocking, now that there's a score aspect in there, like
super exciting.
It's really exciting. And it's a good adaptation in that sense. And again, like to see Katherine Hepburn portraying, I mean, A, be on screen, but B, portray a character like Joe March is massive.
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah. So
loved every time she said that.
We'll get into ratings here in a minute, but I had a good enough time with this. I think pacing just kind of kept me from like really loving it.
Sure.
But also that's the issue of hindsight, is now we have many more adaptations. You know, we didn't even talk about the Winona Ryder adaptation in the 90s.
Yeah.
So there's adaptations where we know what is to come and how we can deal with the pacing of something like that. And I think they handle it a bit better. But for the time period, like, fantastic.
Yeah, it's a solid movie. Yeah. It may not be our favorite, but I can't deny that it's not a solid movie.
Yeah, correct.
For the sake of not running long, I want to get into ratings, but real quick, like speed run. We didn't really talk about like specific scenes in this. Mm-hmm. Did you have a favorite scene?
Oh, it's got to be the play.
Okay, the play
that they put on, and then the absolute chaos of, you know, it'd be one thing to be like, the play went perfectly and everyone had a great time and they were all very lovely. But I think it was much more realistic to show, well, the tower fell and then everyone came to help. And then even in getting back to their seats, they fell over their chairs and they're all like squawking and like, you know, running around and screaming. That's more true to the human experience, I think.
Yeah.
And I liked that overall scene a lot. And seeing Joe like run back and forth of changing her attire, of playing different characters.
Oh, she's got like the fake beard and everything.
Yep.
She's so good in this.
She is.
I really love the scene where Joe comes home and reveals that she sold her hair.
Yes.
She got a haircut and sold her hair. And that's the same scene, I think, when they reveal like her father is sick out wherever he is post-Civil War. So everybody's upset about that except Joe. And then later Joe goes to bed and she's laying there. And I think Amy is comforting her. And she's like, it's okay. Joe's crying. Amy's like, it's okay. Like, Dad'll be fine. She's like, it's not that. I miss my hair. Like, it's such a good character moment for her. So I think that's my favorite scene, kind of just in that story as well. I like it in the Gerwig adaptation as well. Adaptation.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when we talk about like the father, Mr. March in this, he really is kind of like a side note in all of this. It's more like his presence or his lack of presence, how it affects like the characters.
Yeah.
But the thing we talked about off pod and joked about was the Gerwig adaptation in 2019. and the way that Bob Odenkirk portrays Mr. March and comes in and just has like almost like the Avengers level line of like, my little women. And we were anticipating something like that happening in this. He refers to them as that in his letter, right?
Yeah.
Or like the mother is like, he loves his little women. And I was like, ah!
There it is.
Like pointing at the screen.
Yeah, they say it a couple times in this.
Yeah,
And
I was
it
waiting
is-
for that.
You're just like, yeah, every time.
That's where you imagine in the theater, like everyone just stands up and they're like, we did it.
Yeah.
That's the chicken jockey of, I'm glad you got that. The chicken jockey of Little Women.
What if we made that a thing where we screen classic movies and we had like a memeable moment from each movie?
You know what I think it is? It's not so much, there might be a little bit of that in Little Women. It is certainly coming up in the next couple movies that we're going to talk about next year. Yeah. But I think Who Me might be the chicken jockey of these films.
Yeah.
Because Wallace Beery, obviously, huge part of that with Big House. Who Me?
Yeah, yeah.
But even since then, I've caught so many people saying, even in that voice or otherwise, just like, who? Me?
Right.
Who,
yeah.
me? Like, that's just a line in almost every movie. I'm like, oh, interesting.
What if Once Upon a Time at the Oscars became like its own Rocky Horror Picture kind of thing? And there were things we carried on where every time we did a screening, like, I don't know, we're showing The Wizard of Oz or something, and a character says, who, me? And then everyone in the audience is like, who? Me? Like, I think we might be onto something here.
Or whenever Wallace Beery is on screen, every child in the audience has to look away from the screen because we can't share screen time.
I like this too. How many kids do you think are showing up to our screenings?
Well, I mean, none. Certainly nothing that we show Wallace Beery in. He's not going to let him in. Do you want to get into ratings?
I do.
Okay.
Of course, I didn't write mine down. Why would I do that?
Yeah, I didn't either, which I probably should have done. I think I memorized mine, though.
Oh, that's good.
I'm still going to pull it up just in case I don't.
Yeah, I've got mine here. It's, once again, I am very unadventurous, and I gave it a middle-of-the-road 3 stars.
Same.
Yeah.
We're both at 3 stars. And this feels fair, right? Because it is a good adaptation, and I think it's a perfectly fine feature. It suffers some pacing issues for me. I couldn't really get into it. It's not my favorite adaptation of this story. But, I mean, you can't deny Katherine Hepburn, the appearance of a score here, and the score is good, like you mentioned. Just not too much more for me.
Wow. I looked to see what I gave the Greta Gerwig version, and I also gave it 3 stars.
Maybe you're just not a fan of Little Women.
Maybe that's, well, let's take it easy. Yeah, I don't know.
Name one other Louisa May Alcott novel right now. 5 seconds.
Medium Women.
The sequel, the follow-up.
The follow-up. Schmedium Women.
But don't you think that the movie ends on Medium Women?
Yeah, they're all there now. Someone could make a 40 years later sequel and just have it be like, yeah, we're there. Grown women.
Grown women? Yeah, sure. This went well. Yeah, that's okay.
Nobody will laugh at these jokes.
Well, we are, and that's all that matters.
Are we?
I hope that editing Kyle enjoys these too. Yeah, 3 stars seems fair. Not bad. Certainly not bad. No. And it's not like, if anything, I can go higher than 3 stars. I wouldn't want to go lower because there isn't anything offensive or bad about this. It's just the pacing.
Yeah.
And that's just of its time. Again, doesn't mean it's a bad movie, but it's something that I found myself a little bit more wanting towards the back half of this.
Totally. I agree with you. What about a double feature from you?
So double feature, I'm excited to talk about because obviously when we talk about Little Women and Joe March, this was an evolution of characters and women in fiction and what they could achieve. Even the idea of in reality, women having it all. And the free-spirited nature of someone like Joe March lends to, Greta Gerwig doing the adaptations that she did of Little Women. Even the appearances of her characters in Lady Bird, Saoirse Ronan's character. That free-spirited nature very much feels like Joe to a point where, of course she's going to play Joe in the Little Women adaptation that she does. Even Barbie, you see that free-spirited nature of we can have it all. That started from Joe. And to me, that all kind of comes to a head in the first, for me at least, on-screen appearance of a notable arrival of Greta Gerwig in Noah Baumbach's 2012 Frances Ha.
Oh, nice.
The idea of her coming to New York and the trials and tribulations of finding her place in New York, I can't say I'm a big fan of this movie. I actually think if you want to see something very funny, look at my rating of this. Taylor and I saw this in theaters in 2012 when it came out. We did not have a good time with it. I think I gave it half a star on Letterboxd. But that is 14 years ago, so I need to revisit that. Okay, yeah. But you can't deny Greta Gerwig, who she becomes, her voice, and how much of that inspiration came from something like Joe March. So, Frances Ha is going to be my double feature.
Very nice. I'm going to go with another Greta Gerwig movie, House of the Devil. That's not true, but I always just think it's funny that
I want it to be true so bad.
I just always think it's funny that Greta Gerwig is in that movie.
She is, yeah,
very briefly.
But what's funny is not only is she in that movie. I'm so sorry, we're taking this detour. Not only is she in that movie, but when you explain the movie to someone and you're like, it's a horror movie about a babysitter being trapped in this house of the occult and the devil. And they're like, okay, so who's Greta Gerwig? You're like, oh, she's the best friend.
Yeah.
She's the best friend who eats pizza. And she's like, you can't do that. It's great.
And she's great in it.
Well, and the movie takes place in the 70s, right? It's set in the 70s. She has the hair down to a T. Yeah. Beautiful hair for the 70s. God. Love Greta Gerwig in that. I really wish you committed. And you did do that.
I wish I had a way to connect it, but doing House of the Devil with Little Women feels like I'm offending somebody. So it was just for the gag.
It might be me.
It might be. It might be me. So I went with I guess less of a coming of age story because it does take place in more of a very constrained window, or contained window rather. But it is just like the story of this very tight but eccentric family in kind of the American Midwest, and how things going on in their immediate life is really affecting them. It's like a character study specifically for a family. And I went with What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is my best double feature, but I do think there is connective tissue there. And just, again, you have the family and you're seeing all of these things unfold and affect them. I think in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, there are more moments like Beth throughout.
Sure.
But yeah, I like that movie quite a bit. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while for me too. Do you feel like that's one of those movies, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, where you're like, okay, I saw it. And did you like it? It's like, well, I've seen it.
I don't know. I've seen it a lot.
Oh, you've seen it many times?
Yeah, I don't even know why I've seen it a lot, but I've definitely seen it pushing 10 times, I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That sounds intentional to me. Over 10 times, there's an intentionality
in that. Man. I don't know if it was just on TV or something. I was like, oh, What's Eating Gilbert Grapes on? Maybe it's my Born Identity. Some people, Sleeper that cell? Comes on and they're like, oh, sure, I'll watch this.
I got to tell you, to call What's Eating Gilbert Grape your Born Identity.
I just have Catherine Bourne on my mind, so.
Jesus Christ, that's Katherine Hepburn. I'm not going to get over that vocal stem. We're going to need to do that.
It's so good. But yeah, that's Little Women. That's the last movie we're covering for the 6th Academy year, which means next episode we'll be doing our wrap-up ceremony episode.
Sure will.
The polls have closed for you Patreon members voting on which film you think deserved Best Picture. Hopefully you went in and voted so we don't have a real tragedy occur. I'm looking at you, Cavalcade.
A movie about many tragedies.
Yes, and how nobody cares. But
Edward died, huh?
Darn.
Hey, remember when Edward died on the Titanic?
That was crazy.
I think that's an actual line from the movie.
I think moving on. If you do want to be part of the discussion of these movies, you can check out patreon.com/OUTAO podcast to join the Discord. You can also leave us comments on any of our posts to talk about the movies and just interact with us and all of that. I've had a few people comment on recent TikTok posts and things and just say things about, Mae West. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just, little things where they're like, yeah, Queen. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I want in my life.
Yes, Queen.
Exactly. I'm like, thumbs up. But if you want to participate that way, that's great. And what's the other thing I always say? Oh, shoot us an email at outaopodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to have your thoughts read on the show. It's past that point now for this year, but next year, the 7th Academy Awards.
Big one.
Huge for many different reasons. We won't get into it now. We'll talk about it on the ceremony episode, but I am very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Totally. So we will see you for the ceremony episode. Until then, I'm Kyle.
I'm Ryan.
And we'll see you at the movies.